All right, hey everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the We the Collective podcast, where we talk about some health and fitness stuff and some of the intentions and just trying to put like good, positive things out into the community. So for this last week on the studio door, I had the four agreements that were written out. Now, the four agreements were written by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think the book is really, really good. Overall, I find it to be a little bit too like Jesus preachy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a big fan of like big organized religion. But again, if you pray to a God and you feel good, cool. Who am I to go ahead and judge? And that's actually part of the agreements as we go ahead and think about them. That has really helped me out. And what I've learned so far this week is that I'm an idiot and I know nothing because every time I try to think about the standards that I go ahead and set for myself, I realize how quickly that I go ahead and just like not follow the things that I say. And you start to realize these in like the little things. So it's not to go out there and actively partake in that, but you start to kind of catch yourself doing these things that maybe you don't deem as like the best thing for yourself. So I want to go ahead and kind of walk through the four agreements and just give a little bit of experience around there. So I try to get like a little draft written up. So if you see me like my eyes darting around, I do have silly brain issues, undiagnosed, of course, but like let's just do weird stuff and see what happens. So, what again, thinking about the four agreements, I'll go through them quickly and then I'll try to take my time with them. So, the very first one is be impeccable with your word. Do not take anything personally. Do not make assumptions. Always do your best. And I think they're really, really good in a ton of different references. So, as I kind of think through the things that I want to work on, excuse me, the things I want to work on in life, like I want to be a little bit more courageous. I want to be able to have a little bit more wisdom. I want to be able to be more tolerant and patient, and I want to understand moderation. And so, with those things, I think there's infinite. So, there's always something new to go ahead and learn. So, when I think about the very first one, be impeccable with your word. At first, when I read it, I thought it was be impeccable with your words, like to speak perfectly all the time. And then as I kind of continued on and studied more of the material around it, I started to realize that the concept was really getting at be impeccable with your word. So you say what you're going to do and you do the things that you're going to say. And if you know you're not going to do it, don't say you are, right? It is an integrity issue that a lot of people today kind of fold. A lot of times, what I'll recognize is the argument between, having results and having excuses. Now, when I go ahead and what I used to have happen was I would go and fail at something, and I'd be like, well, this guy over here ruined this, and then this happened over here, and then it rained, and then I've been. So there's all these other things that I can go ahead and start to blame and start to say, it's not my fault. I'm perfect. It's something else that's out there. And for me, that's an excuse. But now when I go ahead and look at it, I'm looking for something more of the result. This is what happened of it, something very objective, where it's just you're kind of like doing the study where you're just kind of writing down what's happening. You're not trying to put any other spin on it. You're just saying the person smiled. And you're trying to keep it as simple and easy as you possibly can and say, all right, due to these things, the result of it is X. Now, what is nice about that is that now we can go ahead and say, I learned something from that result. A lot of times when we go ahead and put excuses out there, we show that we're perfect, we're unflawed, everything about us is amazing. However, we're blaming something else out there that's outside of our control. And what we could really do from that instead is to learn what we've done in that scenario. And I've said it plenty of times on the podcast already. No one steps in the same, like no man steps in the same river twice. So as soon as you come back, you are not the same person. It is not the same water that you will go ahead and cross. The idea is to continuously evolve and to change. So when I go ahead and start to think about, am I making an excuse or is this the result of my actions? I need to go ahead and understand, and it's the result of my actions. And through that, I can then be impeccable with my word where I don't have to give the excuse. And even if I fail, I'd be like, you know what? I failed. I made this mistake. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people to go ahead and say, I'm not perfect. And there's enough like little joke that's around it that we can kind of like, but no, to unconditionally say, I didn't do this right. Maybe that wasn't the best of my ability. Right. And we'll get to that one in a little bit. Now, the second one ate at me for such a long time. It bothered me so much. Like this is still like a little bit Diet Coke. Honestly, there was like 2 ounces left in here. It's more fun drinking out of the bottle. Now, the second agreement is don't take anything personally. And I had such a hard time understanding that. So one of the flaws that I know of myself and what I kind of I think about that kind of helps me get through it, I consider it the bowl of soup. So I can be really upset with somebody, and let's just say I walk through a restaurant and I see this person sitting there and I'm immediately angry, and they're just sitting there with a bowl of soup, right? They're just eating a bowl of soup, and I'm sitting there just cursing. I was like, look at that motherfucker just sitting there with his bowl of soup. That person's not bothering anybody. That person's living their life. I'm already going to go ahead. I'm upset about things that I don't need to be upset about. And I like the principal thought of that one because every once in a while I come back to it. I go, am I just hating somebody just eating, like eating soup in the corner? Like, even if I'm really upset with somebody, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I get to control how I feel about those things within myself. So I get to choose if I take things personally, and I can just choose not to. I don't have to go ahead and react to everything that happens out there. So when I'm out and about living my life and I see somebody that has wronged me or something that's upsetting or something that's bothersome, and I was just thinking like, am I actually mad or are they just eating a bowl of soup? All right. They're minding their own business. They're living their life. Let them do their thing. They'll fuck up on their own. I don't need to help them. Right. Because if I can go ahead and already forgive myself, not take any of this stuff personally, it doesn't matter even if they hate me, even if it's right, even if they are of the worst person ever, it doesn't mean anything. They're just going to sit there and enjoy their soup. You don't know what's going on in their head. So we don't know the circumstances of what they're going through. So in the book, there's the segment, and this is why it took me a month to go ahead and figure this out, was imagine somebody that you really care about, a loved one, a best friend, whatever it is. And now they're sitting there with a gun to your head. And it's not fun to talk about guns in any way, shape, or form, but I thought it was such a just a drastic like viewpoint of this one that it kind of helped me understand it a little bit more and even put more severity into everything else. And they're sitting there and you're like, gun to your head. It's not personal. And they can scream at you all they want. They can call you all these horrible things, blame you for all of this other stuff. It's still not personal. They can go ahead and pull the trigger and you're gone. It's still not personal. And I sat there and I'm like, yeah, with all this hate and anger that's going on, like there's no way. There's so many people who are angry about our gun legislation. I don't want to get into politics. Honestly, register your shit, get certified to have the stuff, and then it points out a whole bunch, tax the shit out of them. Done. Um, that's a story for a different day. But what I learned a lot from that process was that it doesn't matter. And it took me over a month of sitting and thinking about that, thinking people who are really close to me actively trying to hurt me, and it's still not personal. Them going out of their way to go ahead and do things that are mean and negative towards my life, and it's still not personal because I have to accept that it is. And if I go ahead and just decide that I'm going to be impeccable with my word and I'm going to do the things I say and say the things I do, I shouldn't take any of that stuff personally because it shouldn't change any of the decisions that I need to go ahead and make to do the best that I can with my life. So it's really hard. It's nothing. It's zero. Like you can't take any, don't take anything personal. Even if they actively try to rile you up, that's the goal. The goal is to show that you can't hold yourself together. The idea is to show yourself that you are irrational and incapable of doing it. But if you don't take it personally, it's like water to a duck's back. Phrasing is weird, but like water to a duck's back, it just goes right off of you and it doesn't matter anymore because you're already set on the important things in your life that you want to go ahead and do. You're already set in the direction that you want to go ahead and perform the things in your life. You are set to go ahead and do the positive things that you expect of yourself on a regular basis. Why would you ever give a shit about somebody who's trying to throw a wrench in there and say it's negative? Continue to do nice, positive stuff. Getting into the third, do not make assumptions. Now, I have failed at that several times today, even in a couple of text messages. I assume things because assuming makes an ass of you and me. And that's one of the ways I continue to remember it. And even I do FP&A work on the side. So I do forecasting. So my job is to assume things are happening. So it's already tough as is. I like to think that for a very long time of my life that I looked at a lot of things and said, I'm going to go Batman level contingency. Even if you didn't think that there was another layer, there's another layer if I needed it. That I always prep to have a little bit further or a little bit more than I needed. And one of the big jokes within the Grundis households, if I don't have two, I don't have it. Sounds like hoarding, but you know what? I'm not without. So when I think about like the do not make assumptions, it comes back a little bit more to the last example around taking things personal. We do not understand the circumstances of what's going between anybody's ears at anybody's time at any time. We have nothing to do with the thoughts that go through somebody else's head. And what's helped me a little bit with that one, and as my brain starts to feel sometimes a little bit overwhelmed, again, I'm trying to still work a full-time job. I'm still trying to open up a new business. I'm still working with youth soccer. And I feel like I'm stretched so thin in some of these scenarios. But when I go ahead and start to think about like what is the priority, what is the important things that I need to go ahead and set out to do, and I start to make assumptions, I start to fill up with other things that are not necessary anymore. So it's very similar to the jar. And if I fill the jar with sand, right? Everybody's heard this one. If I fill the jar with sand, all the little things in life, I'll never have space for any of the big things. So if I go ahead and set what my goals are going to be, and I'm going to work on the things that are really, really hard, and I'm not going to sit here and assume that I know anything else, right? If I assume I know better, if I assume somebody else is going to behave some other way, it's not until it actually happens. So I can think all the things that I want, but until they occur, I am not in control of those moments. And if I do have an opportunity to be in control of those ones, I'm in control of myself, how I think, how I want to go about it. I feel like I trailed off for a second, but the point I wanted to get to was when you have those moments when your brain is running a little bit too much and you're feeling overwhelmed. Because of course, I had to talk about being overwhelmed and have a sip of Diet Coke. If you just think, brain, tell me what my next thought is going to be, it usually shuts up. Like even give yourself a second and say, brain, tell me what my next thought is. It it's because you're the one that's in control of it. And you're allowed to think whatever you'd like. The brain is capable of infinite. So if you give yourself that opportunity and kind of recognize what the reality of the things that are around you, don't assume people are mad at you. If there's a couple of people on the board, I really hope they see this because it'll be really funny. They actually think that I'm upset with them. They're like, oh, I thought you were mad at me. Why? I've been running myself ragged doing this other. You guys are traveling around doing this. You guys have your own lives that are going on right now. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't take anything personal, at least for this week, at least trying my damnedest. So why would I sit there and assume that somebody else is happy or mad or sad? Why would I expect emotion from somebody else? I don't control that at all. So why would that be any of my concern? And that brings me into the last point. Always do your best. And I like to rephrase it as only do your best. And your best could suck. If you've never experienced those things, you could suck at it. And that's 100% fine. Because the next piece of that one is to do your best, is to basically recognize and forgive yourself as you go through those things. You know, I did my best. All right. Could you have done any better? Yes, that's the result. What do you think is going to happen when you try it again? I'm going to prep for these other things. So something new has to go ahead and change, right? Now you're stepping into the river again. It's a brand new spot. So knowing that your best is only your best, and you'll feel it in yourself. And if you're disappointed and upset and mad by those things, and those are driving you towards other negative things, the most important piece is to forgive yourself. You're stuck with you forever, period. That's like the fun part. Like, yeah, I'm stuck with me. Like, this guy is stuck with this thing in here. Like, that's forever. But at least now I have a better understanding of if I go out there and do the best that I can, I'm only going to get results. I'm going to go ahead and look right through the excuses because I'm not going to go ahead and assume those things and I'm not going to take those things personally. And I'm going to go ahead and do what I say and say what I do. I'll be impeccable with my words. And the more often I do those things, those are fantastic ways to go through life. And it doesn't matter what the goal is, and it doesn't matter how you're going about your life. The idea is if you start to think about those things and find that guidance within yourself, I don't fucking know how to direct people. Like with me and how my brain works, I don't want people buying jumpsuits and drinking weird Kool-Aid. Like farthest thing from it. I want people to believe the best of themselves, to see the potential within themselves and know that if they challenge themselves to do difficult things and they consistently show up and do these hard things, they will improve. You'll continuously see some form of result. You will learn. And it's really, really hard to go ahead and get other people to understand that. So when I go ahead and I try to go through my day, it's best of my ability. I'm going to say the things and I'm going to go do the things that I say. I don't want to take any of the stuff personally. And part of it is because like I joke around a little bit, like a little bit about it. It's statistically speaking, the probability of life in the universe is zero. So I always find that really funny. So any of that stuff is extra gravy anyway, right? Like we statistically shouldn't even exist. So like, why should I take anything personally? Like, why am I going to go ahead and let the thoughts of somebody else indicate and dictate how my day is going to go? I could be having a fantastic day. Someone says you suck, like you read comments and people say you suck, and it's like, thanks, I like attention, and then you just go about your shit. Who cares? If you don't take it personally, you just stay away from violence. You don't incite anybody to do dumb shit. You don't get people to be angry because then again, you start to be non-impeccable with your words. I think that's right. Impeccable? No, you would just be peccable with your words. No, because impeccable would mean perfect. What if you're wrong with your words? Would that just be peccable? It's not. That's why I was really confused there for a second. My cousin's off to the side. Um, he's endured this entire shit, right? And he's probably not taking any of this personal, but he's making a ton of assumptions of how fucking weird this is. Um, but on that note, I just wanted to make sure that I went through it and I like the concept of thinking about an intention for the week, something that will give me some direction, something to go ahead and think about, aspire to be. And then I can use these other things. And you know what? Next week, I might not even think for 1 second on any of the four agreements. But if I spend my time this week, that means sometime in the future, I'll catch myself when I do it and I'll correct myself faster. So even if I go ahead and fail, I get a chance to learn because I'm stuck with me forever. But anyways, on that one, come into the studio. Like, just sign a waiver that says I won't hurt you. Um, no, I love the work that I get to do. I love interacting with the people that I get to interact with. We're trying to build up more things like a running club. We understand that the neighborhood's changing a little bit. Some other places are growing, closing, changing. Um, I think there's a wonderful community out there of individuals who want to do better things for themselves. And if even for a moment I can help you get in that direction, it's what I'm here to do. On that note, good luck.